Ho, ho, ho. Alright, so welcome back to another review. This time we're looking at the iFi Micro iDSD Signature. This one I'm actually pretty stoked about reviewing. I've never tried a portable amp like this before, so I'm curious to see how it stacks up against similarly priced offerings. So full disclosure, iFi did send this unit to me, but they have no restrictions of any kind. They said, be as upfront and honest about it as you want, and that is exactly what I intend on doing. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in. Now, as far as the contents are concerned, it actually comes with quite a lot of accessories, so you're gonna have to bear with me here. So it comes with the unit itself, obviously, a female USB-A to male USB-A cable for data transfer, a short pair of dual RCA cables, which I'm not really sure why you would need these for, this particular unit, but every now and then, every audio enthusiast is going to find themselves needing an extra pair of these, so it's pretty nice of iFi to provide them for you. A really short USB Type-C to USB Type-A cable for charging purposes. An iFi branded velour pouch for storage and portability purposes. 2 rubber bands to tie the unit to a music player / phone for on-the-go pleasure. A rubber pad that you can place on the bottom of the unit to prevent it from sliding back and forth on a slightly more slippery surface. A Toslink optical to female USB-A adapter in case you need that flexibility with your inputs and outputs. A good old 3.5mm to 1/4 inch adapter in case your headphones don't have that already, because yes, you will require it for this unit. And what I believe is a mini Toslink to coaxial 3.5mm adapter in case you do want to use optical through the optical port on the device. And as usual, don't forget about the snack for the kids. Fun to eat. Of course, it also comes with the warranty and instruction manual. Go ahead and pause the video if you want to go ahead and read this in its entirety. So now for the build and I/O. The unit features a dark blue metal finish that has barely any flex when trying to squeeze it. That's definitely an A+ in build quality right there. Now on the front of the device, there's a 1/4 inch port for single-ended, a 4.4mm Pentagon port for balanced, the X-Base Plus switch, the 3D Plus switch, and the only LED, which is multicolor, refer to the contents portion of this review to read what each color means, and of course the volume dial / power switch. On the rear of the unit is a Toslink mini optical input, dual RCA outputs, and a male USB-A input. Now, unless it has to do with data transfer or durability, I have no idea why they went with a male USB port instead of a more traditional female port or even USB-C. Now keep in mind, this USB port is strictly for data transfer, not for charging the micro. On the left side of the unit, there's the power mode switch, the filter switch, and the IEM match switch. More on what each of them do in the features portion of this review. On the right side of the unit is a female USB-C charging port with a small LED. When the device is on, it will glow a particular color indicating how much battery life is left. Now let's discuss the functions. Now because this device is primarily focused on portability, I went ahead and tried it out on my smartphone and on my Windows laptop. I started with the Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus. Simply plug it in using an OTG adapter or something similar. Now when you plug in the micro, your phone detects it as a set of wired headphones, so adjusting the volume from your phone actually affects the sound output heard from the headphones. By keeping the phone's volume at 6 out of 15, the X-Base set to off, 3D set to off, power mode set to turbo, filter set to standard, and IEM match set to off, I ran the HD600 at around 1 p.m. on the device. At the same settings, I ran the COS Porta Pros at 10:30 a.m. Now just a quick look back as I approached later on into the review. Later into my testing, I tried to match the output on my phone with the output I was getting on PC in order to minimize how much power the iFi uses up, thus extending battery life. To run my HD600s at 11 a.m. on the potentiometer, I set my phone's volume level to 12 out of 15 and the micro to the normal power mode, everything else held consistent. So now with a Windows PC, it will be set up to 32-bit 48 kHz by default. Be warned, by the way, it will be very loud. Even though you can move the volume slider on your Windows settings, your volume won't change at all. I had to set the volume on Fubar 2000 to -8 decibels and switch the micro's power mode from turbo to normal. With those adjustments, I ran my HD600 at 10:30 a.m. When I tried out a YouTube video, I had to turn down the volume to 10 a.m. actually. Yeah, this thing outputs power like nobody. Oh my. Yeah, this thing outputs power like nobody's business. See, when shifting down to eco mode, I ran my HD600s at around like 12:30 to 1 p.m. Now between eco and normal, I did happen to hear a tiny extra bit of detail push through in normal mode. So my advice is to go ahead and run it at that unless you really need those 3 extra hours of power this can give you. Now, something to point out here, when plugging in the micro to my Surface Laptop 3, I heard a faint, constant buzzing sound while wearing my HD600s. Now keep in mind that the micro was off at the time. Once I turned on the micro, the buzzing stopped entirely. So just to verify, I went ahead and tried the same test on my desktop PC, and it no longer did this. So just a thing to point out here, this was not the fault of the micro. Just in case you experienced this yourself, it must have just been a weird interference issue emanating from my laptop's motherboard, which that's just sometimes it happens with laptops, you know, manufacturers cheap out a bit and this type of issues may occur. Still though, I'd make sure to not leave your headphones plugged into the micro if your PC does the same thing. Just a precautionary measure. Now here's where we get into the more juicy details, the X-Bass toggle on the device. So I tried out the X-Bass on a variety of headphones and found it mostly helpful, but it needs to have good synergy with your headphones. So an example of bad synergy, the HD600s. It generally provides a boost from the mid-bass down to the deepest levels of the sub-bass. To me, I heard around like 200 Hertz and below. On Zealots of Stockholm at the 305 minute mark, it definitely improved extension. However, it does make mid-bass too prominent, especially in non-bass oriented tracks. I personally prefer keeping the HD600 stock rather than using the X-Bass functionality though. It kind of sounds like the HD600 drivers don't really know what to do with all that extra bass. Like it's just there and they're like, ooh, oh, what this? Hold. An example of decent synergy, the HD560S. The bass extension is mostly welcome and it can make the entire experience more enjoyable. On bass-oriented tracks, the change is mostly welcome if you can get past a slightly more meaty mid-bass. It's really not that bad in this particular instance. It pretty much only detracts from the experience when listening to the most simple of acoustic tracks that really like they don't need any extra bass or particular warmth there to make it sound better. Now, because I personally really like the professionally flat bass that the HD560S provide, I can take or leave the X-Bass functionality whenever I feel like it. The difference is very similar on the Sundaras, but it sounds a bit more natural to me. Like I enjoyed the implementation a bit more. It kind of felt a little more at home with the extension boost. Now an example of a trade-off, so kind of a neutral but with strong pros and kind of strong cons. The HD800. The X-Bass toggle is a real double-edged sword here. At first, toggling it feels like it completes the headphone. You know, for those of you who aren't aware, the HD800s are very, on the bright side, very detailed, very wide, but they also have a very toned down bass response, which can be a pro, but also can be a con. So with the X-Bass functionality, it really sounds like it completes the headphone. Like it just neutralizes everything. It just equalizes the experience. It brings in that low end that the HD800 desperately needs, or well, at least that's how the majority of audio enthusiasts feel about these. Now, I enjoyed filling in the low end, giggity, until I encountered tracks such as Get Lucky by Daft Punk, where there really isn't a whole lot of sub-bass to improve. But the bass guitar is definitely too forward for my tastes. At this point, you'd have to use EQ software like Equalizer APO to tone down the 160 to 200 Hertz range, as well as tone down those peaks in the treble, which defeat the purpose of having an ultra convenient switch on your DAC amp to begin with. And now, an example of amazing synergy, the ARYAs. I mean, I think I've used this term in a previous video, so I'll go ahead and use that to describe how I feel about this combo. Oh, holy they knocked my socks off. If you thought the bass on the Arias was impressive already, these take it up like 3 notches. It's exactly the same type of change you notice when you decide to add a subwoofer or two in your existing studio / home theater / car audio setup. See, the bass was clean, present, and neutral before, but now? Oh, now. Seriously though, if you get this unit or have a similar iFi unit with that X-Bass functionality, and you have a pair of Arias, listen to Kyoto by Skrillex featuring Syra, Alive, the Z remix by Empire of the Sun, and Mask Off by Future. It is quite the show. It's like it strips away your Arias and brings you the Aria Plus, like it unlocks God tier for the Arias. Of course, just like implementing a subwoofer with the intent of having extra bass, the mid-bass can be a bit too forward on a non-bass oriented track like the Postmodern Jukebox cover of Dream On. But then if you find the bass too prominent, all you have to do is just go here, toggle it off, and you're done. There's no EQ to mess with, there is no swap to a different headphone, it's just toggle it and you've got your regular Arias again. Oh, regular to bass oriented track comes on? Boom, you're back to party mode. Seriously, like I have to put it this way. On the majority of headphones, the 3D bass functionality sounds like you are adding bass to a headphone. With the Arias, it feels like it's part of the Arias. It feels like you're unlocking an extra feature that you couldn't listen to before. Amazing synergy. That's all I have to say. It's amazing synergy. And now, you know how I feel about the Arias. Generally speaking, I say, well, okay, bass is nice and all, but I'm not a big fan of them. And if they were to keep, for me personally, not as a reviewer, but as a consumer, I wouldn't really keep the Arias at all. Well, this changes my perspective 100%. If I had this with the Arias, I would have that combo and have that for whenever I want to feel the bass. It's really something special. Okay, now to turn down the hype, let's jump into the 3D Plus functionality here. It's kind of wacky, and by wacky, I don't necessarily mean good or bad. I think they actually hit the nail with the word unsettling that they use in their pamphlet. The 3D Plus functionality itself is unsettling because it messes with the sound in many ways that may surprise you when you go and listen to your favorite tracks. Sound signature wise, the 3D Plus functionality brings the vocals and the air and the treble forward. You can really hear that when listening to Kyoto by Skrillex featuring Syra, especially at around the minute 48 mark. Syra also takes a few steps forward and sort of jumps at you. This brings me to my next point. Generally, everything from mids to treble sounds a bit more weightless, kind of lighter, like it's just elevating, like it's not standing on the ground, it's floating, you know, like hovering in place. So more than soundstage, I feel that the 3D Plus messes with imaging and positioning. When listening to Hotel California at the 37-second mark, the upper percussion that goes from right to left, then back to right, actually got closer to me and sounded a bit tizzier. However, when listening to Tank by the Seatbelts, a lot of the brass emerged from the darkness and stood on the sides. Like it grabbed the sound that was right here and did this. It just pushed it this way and like it's holding it in place on the sides. It's just, listen to this, and it's around you as opposed to in front of you and in like close to you. It also converted the soundstage from a medium-sized club room to a medium-large concert hall. Now, in order to see if it had a more overall positive effect, I tried this out in Cyberpunk 2077 on the HD600s, a naturally narrow headphone, and the HD800s, a naturally wide headphone, to see if 3D Plus had a more positive effect. On the HD600s, it didn't really have a big effect. It mostly just amplified the mids and the highs to simulate the feeling of increased detail, which was okay, but I honestly, I could do without it. You know, toggle it on, toggle it off, whatever. On the HD800s, however, it filled out those few areas around the rear of the soundstage that one would perceive as being dead zone, so to speak. Of course, you wouldn't really perceive that until you try out a feature like the 3D Plus. When I had a call come in-game of course, the person's voice sounded a bit shoutier with the 3D Plus enabled though.
Where's your cute little
So in short, for an audio purist, I wouldn't really recommend the 3D Plus functionality. When it comes to music, I think it works best on headphones with a more medium to narrow soundstage. With headphones like the HD800 that already possess a wide soundstage, it can just be a bit more like sensory overload. Gaming on the flip side, I think wider headphones just get even wider, whereas the narrow headphones it's kind of a strange little trick. Regardless, it can definitely be a fun little trick to toggle every now and then, you know, just something to throw you off and change the game a bit, you know? Hey, I don't want to buy a new set of headphones, I'm comfortable with what I got, and I don't want to buy a new DAC amp either. Okay, just toggle the switch and, you know, experience something different. Now the Micro offers 3 filters to choose from: standard, minimum phase, and bit perfect. iFi recommends bit perfect for listening and standard for measurements. So let's find out why. Now I did the majority of my evaluation on the sound, the X-Bass, and 3D Plus through standard simply because, well, it's the standard. Now I flipped through a couple of tracks back and forth, toggled the switch back and forth numerous times. Frankly, I hardly even heard a difference. Anything I might have heard can easily be attributed to mind games, so it's not even worth mentioning it. I guess I would recommend just adjusting it to bit perfect if you want to make sure the DAC adjusts to whatever track you're playing. If you encounter issues though, just switch it back to standard. You're really not missing out on a whole lot. As for the IEM match switch, I actually don't own any IEMs or any other highly sensitive devices, so I really can't say much about that. Should be pretty straightforward though. Use it if the micro is too loud for your IEMs and you're done. That's it. Now last of all, the Micro is compatible with many types of audio formats, including PCM, DSD, DXD, and MQA for high-res title playback. So to conclude, this little thing is an absolute beast. It can handle anything you throw at it while having such a light footprint. If you're the type of person who needs to take their audio experience on the road often, you can just buy this one unit for your at-home setup, then detach it and put it in your bag whenever it's time to go. Now at first, its price tag of $650 might throw you off, but remember, this is a DAC amp combo with almost every input and output you might need. It can run headphones through single-ended and balanced. It has that X-Bass and 3D Plus functionality that can really benefit some headphones. And on top of all that, it is extremely portable. It fits in the hand. It fits in the hand, very easy to fit this in a pouch. You just stuff it in there, that's what she said, and you go. You're on the go. Now, if you think of the price of your average DAC amp desktop combo that can run headphones balanced, that runs at about $400 to $600 for the more reasonably priced models. In exchange for its extra features and being able to take it all on the go, I really think the Micro's price tag is really well justified. So it's as clean and clear as your typical desktop DAC and amp, and I highly recommend it to anyone looking for something like this, especially ARYA users. Seriously, I am not playing around here. You go do yourself a favor, check this one out. If you have a pair of HiFiMAN ARYAs, it changes the game tremendously. So yeah, I really wish I could keep this, but I already have a DAC amp setup, and I don't need this for portability reasons, so I'm personally not going to keep it because I'm not the type of consumer this targets, but it pains me to see this go because it made me actually like the ARYAs enough to want to keep them. So look, if you don't currently own a DAC amp and you do have a pair of ARYAs or are looking to get the pair of ARYAs because the bass, the legendary bass, is something you're interested in, don't hesitate, pick this thing up. You can use it while charging, so you can just leave this plugged in and just toggle, and everything else is going to be absolutely perfect. There is no reason not to get this, especially if you're just starting out and you're looking for something that's balanced, portable. All right, I think I've already oversold this, so I'm gonna just end it there. But yeah, this thing cannot get a more positive review out of me. It really is that good. So that's where I'm gonna end the review. Thank you very much for watching this, and I hope it brings you as much of a shocking reaction as it brought to me with the ARYAs. So thank you very much.